On paper, football in Nigeria should be unstoppable. A nation overflowing with raw talent. Street footballers with skill that defies logic. A history of producing stars who shine on the global stage. From dusty pitches to international stadiums, the dream is alive everywhere. Young boys wake up every morning chasing it. They want to become the next JJ Okocha, the next Nwankwo Kanu. They believe that if they are good enough, they will be seen. That talent will always find its way. But what if that belief is a lie? Because behind the celebration of Nigerian football lies a reality few people want to talk about. A system where decisions are not always based on merit. A system where opportunity can be bought. A system where talent alone is not enough. For years, whispers have circulated within the football community. Stories of players being overlooked despite clear ability. Stories of selections influenced by connections rather than performance. The stories of money quietly changing hands behind closed doors. At first, these stories sounded like excuses. The kind players tell when things don't go their way. But over time, the whispers became louder, more consistent, more detailed, too similar to ignore. Reports began pointing toward a deeper issue within structures linked to the Nigeria Football Federation. Not necessarily a single incident, but a pattern. Allegations of corruption, favoritism, and financial mismanagement began surfacing in different forms. Coaching appointments questioned. Player selections debated. Funds reportedly misused or poorly accounted for. And slowly, a disturbing picture started to emerge. This was not just about a few bad decisions. It was about a system that could be manipulated. A system where influence sometimes mattered more than performance. For young players, this realization changes everything. Because the dream they are chasing is built on one assumption: that the game is fair, that if they work harder, train longer, and perform better, they will rise. But what happens when that foundation is broken? When merit is no longer the deciding factor? When opportunity depends on access, connections, or money? Then the dream begins to shift from something pure into something uncertain, and for many, something unreachable. Because in a system where corruption exists, talent becomes only part of the equation. And for those without influence, it may never be enough. When corruption enters a system, it rarely stays in one place. It spreads, quietly at first, almost invisibly. Then, gradually, it begins to influence everything connected to it. In Nigerian football, the ripple effect reaches far beyond a single match or a single selection decision. It begins with trust, or more accurately, the loss of it. Players who train relentlessly start to question whether performance truly matters. Coaches who try to build competitive teams find themselves navigating unseen pressures. And fans who once believed passionately in the national game begin to suspect that something deeper is wrong. The consequences become visible in subtle ways. Talented players disappear from squads without clear explanation. Less experienced players suddenly appear in key matches. Decisions that should be based on form and fitness raise uncomfortable questions. In a football culture where millions follow every match closely, these inconsistencies rarely go unnoticed. Discussions erupt across sports media and fan communities. Accusations circulate online. Journalists investigate suspicious patterns. But proving corruption inside sports governance is rarely simple. Many decisions happen behind closed doors. Documents remain confidential. Financial trails are difficult to track, which means suspicions often linger without definitive answers. Meanwhile, the ripple continues. Within the structures linked to the Nigeria Football Federation, administrative disputes and leadership conflicts have periodically drawn public attention. Financial transparency has been questioned in several moments across the years. Funding for development programs, payments for staff and players, allocation of resources meant to strengthen grassroots football. When those systems appear unstable, the effects cascade downward. Youth academies struggle to receive support. Local leagues lose structure and credibility. and young players chasing professional careers find themselves navigating an environment filled with uncertainty. For fans, the consequences appear on the field. Nigeria, a country with immense football talent, has occasionally struggled in international competitions where expectations were high. Each disappointing result fuels the same uncomfortable question: is the problem really talent, or something deeper within the system itself? Because when corruption affects governance, the impact is rarely confined to offices and boardrooms. It eventually reaches the pitch. Team chemistry suffers, preparation becomes inconsistent, and the belief that once united players and supporters begins to weaken. Over time, that erosion becomes one of the most damaging consequences of all. Because football is built on belief. Belief in the team, belief in fairness, belief that victory is earned. And when those beliefs begin to fade, the ripple of corruption becomes impossible to ignore. By the time concerns about corruption reach the public, the real activity has already been happening for years. Quietly, carefully, and often legally ambiguous. Because in football governance, corruption does not always appear as obvious crime. It hides inside decisions, inside influence, inside systems that lack transparency. Investigating how it works inside structures linked to the Nigeria Football Federation requires looking beyond headlines and into patterns. Patterns that repeat across time, roles, and responsibilities. One of the most common pressure points is player selection. On the surface, selection is simple. Coaches evaluate performance. They assess fitness, form, and tactical fit. But behind that process, other forces can emerge. External recommendations, informal influence, and, in some reported cases, financial incentives. Not always direct, not always provable, but enough to raise consistent questions. Another critical area is coaching appointments. In an ideal system, coaches are selected based on experience, results, and long-term vision. But when governance is unstable, appointments can become politicized. Short-term decisions replace long-term planning. Continuity is lost. And with every change, the system resets. Without real progress, financial management is another layer where scrutiny often intensifies. Budgets allocated for development programs, grassroots initiatives, and national team preparation require strict accountability. But when transparency is limited, tracking how funds are used becomes difficult. Allegations of delayed payments to players and staff have surfaced at different times. Funding gaps raise concerns about where resources are going. And in environments where oversight is weak, mismanagement can exist without immediate consequence. The challenge for investigators, whether journalists or insiders, is that proof is hard to secure. Decisions are rarely documented in ways that expose intent. Transactions can be complex, and those involved often operate within systems that protect themselves, which creates a dangerous reality. Everyone may sense the problem, but very few can prove it definitively. This is where corruption becomes most effective, not in what is seen, but in what cannot be clearly demonstrated. Because ambiguity creates protection, and protection allows repetition. Across Nigeria and beyond, similar patterns have been observed in different forms of sports governance, which suggests something larger than isolated incidents. A structure where accountability struggles to keep pace with influence. And until that balance shifts, the investigation never truly ends. Because the system adapts, and the questions remain. For years, corruption in football can exist quietly, hidden behind results, narratives, and national pride. But eventually, the consequences become impossible to ignore, not in boardrooms, but on the pitch, and in the lives of players who never get the opportunities they deserve. For every talented footballer in Nigeria who makes it, there are countless others who do not. Not because they lack ability, but because the system around them is flawed. Young players train relentlessly, believing that performance will open doors. They push through injuries. They sacrifice education. They dedicate their lives to the game. But when selection is influenced by factors beyond merit, that sacrifice begins to lose meaning. Imagine being the best player on the field, consistently, undeniably, and still being overlooked, not once, not twice, but repeatedly, over time. That reality breaks more than ambition. It breaks belief, because football, at its core, is built on fairness, or at least the perception of it. And when that perception collapses, so does motivation. For the national team, the consequences are equally damaging. When the best players are not always selected, performance suffers, team chemistry weakens, preparation becomes inconsistent, and results begin to reflect those internal fractures. Fans notice, they question tactics, they criticize players, but often they are reacting to symptoms, not the underlying cause. Moments of disappointment in major competitions begin to carry more weight. Missed opportunities, unexpected losses, each one adds to a growing sense that something is not right. Behind the scenes, instability creates further damage. Frequent changes in leadership disrupt long-term planning. Development programs lose direction. And grassroots football, where future stars are meant to emerge, struggles to thrive. For players who are affected directly, the consequences extend beyond football. Careers stall. Opportunities disappear. Some walk away from the game entirely. Others continue, but with a lingering awareness that the system is not designed for them. That awareness changes how they play, how they trust, how they dream. Because once doubt enters the system, it does not leave easily. It spreads from player to player, from generation to generation, until the damage is no longer individual, but collective. And at that point, the cost of corruption is no longer hidden. It is visible in results, in lost potential, in a national game that could be more, but isn't. In the end, corruption in football does not always collapse under one investigation. There is no single moment where everything is exposed and fixed. No final match where justice is restored. Instead, it lingers in systems that continue to operate, in decisions that are never fully explained, in opportunities that quietly disappear. Across Nigeria, the conversation around sports governance continues to grow. Journalists ask harder questions. Fans demand more transparency. Former officials speak out about issues that were once hidden. And organizations connected to the Nigeria Football Federation face increasing pressure to improve accountability. There are calls for reform, clearer financial reporting, stronger oversight mechanisms, more transparent selection processes. Because without these changes, the system cannot rebuild trust. And trust, once broken, is difficult to restore. But reform is not simple. It requires more than public statements. It requires structural change, policies that are enforced consistently, leadership that prioritizes integrity over influence, and a system where merit is not just expected, but guaranteed. For players, the future depends on that change, because the next generation is already watching. Young footballers training on local pitches still believe in the dream. They still wake up early, still push their limits, still trust that if they're good enough, they will succeed. The question is whether that belief will be rewarded or tested. Because if corruption remains unchecked, the cycle will continue. New players will enter the system. New opportunities will be promised. And the same challenges will repeat themselves in different forms. But if change happens, if transparency becomes real, not just promised, then the story can shift from one of limitation to one of possibility. Because football in Nigeria has never lacked talent. It has never lacked passion. What it has lacked, at times, is a system that protects both. And in the end, that is the real issue. Not just corruption itself, but what it takes away: opportunities, trust, and the belief that the game is fair. Because when fairness disappears, the dream changes. And when the dream changes, so does the future of the game.